I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy roundtable, fantasy roundtable, yeah. Fantasy roundtable, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy roundtable, fantasy roundtable, woo. Fantasy roundtable, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. Hey, good news, America. Not only are Dennis and I back with you in prime time, the Broncos are back with you in prime time too. So you can get pumped. Dennis, another wild week. My team hasn't let me down because they didn't play yet. Your team couldn't let you down because they were on a bye. We've got to be feeling good, right?
I feel fantastic, man. I'm like, if my adopted team, the Browns, had performed better, granted, I did pick the Patriots, but, at least the Lions didn't lose.
I picked the Cowboys too, so we all make mistakes of the heart. Well, we're happy to have you. As a reminder, we are part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. You can find all the shows on the network following the hashtag TPPN. We're going to dive into a wild week 6. And you know what? We're going to start with a team that disappointed us right out of the box. I believe one of us, and that would be this one, said the 49ers might be the best team in the NFC West. And you know what? Kyle Shanahan took that and said, hold my beer. In a 28-14 loss to his former team, the Atlanta Falcons. Dennis, we see the 49ers come out and clock the Rams on Monday Night Football, but we've also seen them now lose to the Bears in Chicago, to the Falcons in Atlanta, whatever that Sunday night game was in Denver. Are they too inconsistent to trust?
It seems like they struggle sometimes with playing down to competition. And then the Falcons made a couple plays and got some scores. And then the 49ers ended up only rushing the ball, 16 times for the entire game. And their method of winning isn't to have Jimmy Garoppolo throw the ball 41 times. That just isn't how they're going to be successful. If you roster Kittle, it was great for you. If you started Brandon Ayuk, it was great for you. Heck, even without touchdowns, Deebo Samuel was good for you. But they need a more balanced game to be successful. So, it's just playing down to the competition. The Falcons were amped up. For whatever reason, maybe they have a chip on their shoulder because of Shanahan. Maybe they're blaming him for their Super Bowl loss directly. I don't know, but the Falcons came out and played well.
Yeah, let's look at the Falcons side for a minute. Obviously 49ers have a pretty tough defense, one of the better defenses in the NFL. Marcus Mariota's numbers aren't eye-popping, but he was 13 out of 14, threw for 129, got a couple passing touchdowns, carried it 6 times for 50 yards and a rushing touchdown. Have we been underrating him?
As an NFL quarterback, yeah, maybe a touch. As a fantasy quarterback, I don't think so. I think we all expected that as long as Mariota could stay healthy, he was going to be able to perform with his legs, and that would add additional value. I mean, the game script is crazy when you look at it. The Falcons ran the ball 40 times. The 49ers ran it 16. The Niners threw it 41, and the Falcons threw it 14. It was like a complete opposite. ball control. Atlanta, they used their two young running backs to grind it out, and then Marcus Mariota ran it to make some big plays. He ended up with 2 touchdown passes and a touchdown run. Unfortunately, my guy Tyler Algier didn't get it, but Mariota is playing well enough to, I think, keep Desmond Ridder on the bench. They're not going to throw the towel in yet, but they're going to throw it in probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 weeks. We'll start to see a little more Desmond Ridder.
He's almost playing too well. Atlanta was a team we thought was going to bottom out. The offensive plan yesterday almost reminds you of when Arthur Smith was in Tennessee, except for
there's no Derrick Henry.
We'll move over to Cleveland, where the New England Patriots came into town and hung 38 on the Browns, who managed just 15 in the losing effort. We thought it was going to be predominantly on the ground, but the Patriots only ran for 98 yards as a team. It was a lot of Bailey Zappi, who threw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Dennis, I heard a couple of people bantering on talk radio about
you froze on me, or I froze on you. Oh, hey, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. Apparently my internet is just preparing itself for life with the Broncos. So I heard on the talk radio a little of conversation about whether it should be Bailey Zappi instead of Mac Jones. What do you think about that?
Hey, didn't we hear that same thing about whether or not it should be Cooper Rush or Dak Prescott? Not that Mac Jones.
Don't jump ahead.
Not that Mac Jones is Dak Prescott, but I think Mac Jones is Bailey Zappi's ceiling. He's a game manager. New England kind of structures their game plan to take advantage of the other team's perceived weakness. They did it by, on defense by stifling Nick Chubb, and on offense, they felt they could beat the Cleveland linebackers because Zappi certainly didn't throw for. He threw for 309, but on 34 attempts, it's not like he was bombing away. What Parker had I guess Jonnu Smith's was a catch and run for 53. So there was definitely some yards after the catch. They were getting guys downfield a little bit and letting them make some plays. But Zappi is, a game manager. We've seen Mac Jones have this kind of game too. And I think Jones is a better version of this. And when he's back healthy, he'll be the starter. And Bill Belichick will trade Bailey Zappi for a early 3rd round pick and turn it into an all-pro defensive end. You're muted.
Part of me wonders if it's not so much Bailey Zappi as the Patriots offensive wonderkins actually finally figuring out what works.
Right.
On the flip side, the Browns dropped to 2-4 on the season, 1-3 at home. Another kind of middling and ugly performance. They still have a while before Deshaun Watson comes back. What do they need to do to get better?
Use a time machine to get to week 12. Did we have outsized expectations for what the Browns would be able to accomplish with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback for 11 games? I think Deshaun Watson's going to have a good end of the season because he's a much better quarterback. But the Browns are, they've got a pretty good offensive line. One of the best, if not the best, running backs in the game that they frequently misuse by either A, not giving enough carries, or B, not giving any receptions to. And I get that Kareem Hunt is good in that aspect of the game, but so is Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb is substantially more explosive than Kareem Hunt. And they don't really have a second receiver after Amari Cooper. Nobody has really stepped up to be that legitimate second wide receiver threat. Njoku's having a good year, and Harrison Bryant is okay as your second tight end. But they really need somebody to be that wide. They need a Michael Gallup, They need a Devonta Smith. They need somebody to be that too, and they just don't have anybody there. And then you throw into the mix that if he could get away with it, Kevin Stefanski would run the ball 35 times. He would give, only 15 of them to Nick Chubb. He would have to Ernest Johnson, Jerome Ford, and Kareem Hunt split the other carries. But, it is what it is. We just have to remember, don't outsize our expectations on what we expect for both the Browns NFL prospects this year and the Browns fantasy prospects this year.
Well, Will Fuller still out there. We shall see.
For a reason.
On to a game that was a surprising outcome. On Friday, I mentioned that I wanted to pick the Jets. Apparently, I should have followed what my heart wanted because they managed to come up with the 27-10 win in Green Bay on Sunday. Dennis, are the Jets contenders?
I think they're playoff contenders. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders. There's definitely a lot of growth that needs to happen with Zach Wilson. Breece Hall looks great. Michael Carter looks really good as the change of pace back. That's definitely turned into a 2-for-1 split. So I think they've got a really, really strong running game. But their offense in the passing game just hasn't clicked as well with Zach Wilson as it was with the KG veteran and elite Joe Flacco. Elijah Moore didn't even get a target yesterday. And when Rich Cimini pointed it out, Moore retweeted Cimini pointing it out. He sounded kind of whiny.
Yeah, well, who did get a target? Braxton Berrios. He also got a catch and a rush for 20 yards and a touchdown. So you must have been feeling good about your boy.
Yeah, I'm off the Berrios train.
On the flip side, the Packers continue to be a confounding mystery. What do you make of their passing game? Randall Cobb obviously going out with injury yesterday. Can't be anything good for them.
Romeo Doubs was inefficient for 4 catches on 9 targets. Robert Tonyan had a resurgence, 10 out of 12 for 50. Was it 50 or 90? 90 yards. And Lazard, another inefficient day, but 76 yards and a touchdown. They need to get better at. They just can't. You just can't have your top 2 wide receivers going 4 for 9. You're not going to win that way. Rodgers at 41 passes, only 246 yards, but they also only had 19 total carries for Dillon and Jones. Those are the 2 best weapons that team has, and they just don't want to use them. It's kind of crazy to me that you look at Aaron Jones, and Rodgers made mention of it in post game, basically saying he thought that Aaron Jones should get 20 touches. They needed to simplify things, and by simplify he means let me do what I want to do because I can show you I can win. LaFleur, I think, outsmarts himself.
Well, the best game they've looked this season was getting Aaron Jones the ball a lot. He actually has a lower target rate this year than he has the last 3 years combined, which is astounding. Another fascinating finish, the Indianapolis Colts displaying all the offense we didn't get to see on Thursday Night Football, managed the 34-27 win over the Jaguars, kind of knocking that demon out of their closet. Dennis, the Jags were at one point 2-1 with a huge win over the Chargers, but they have slumped now to 2-4. Has the shine kind of gone off the Jacksonville season?
I think we need to remember that they are still a rebuilding team with a first-year coach and a second-year quarterback. I think they're going to be fine. I think we probably picked them in the 5 to 6, maybe 7 win range, and I think they still get there.
I thought a 6 to 7 win team, and they probably are that now. We just got excited.
Right. Zay Jones, he was functional in PPR at 9.2 points. Evan Ingram, 9 points. Christian Kirk saved his day with a touchdown, 4 for 24. That wasn't great. But Travis Etienne ran the ball well, 10 for 86. And James Robinson, 12 for 54. It was a bummer that nobody started JaMychal Hasty. That was, in Joe Dolan's words, that was a sick of this touchdown.
On the flip side, Matt Ryan just exploding, 42 of 58, 389 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Where has this Matt Ryan been all season?
I don't know, but I'm not comfortable having Matt Ryan throw the ball 58 times. That was a lot. And he had a pretty good day, but 42 completions for 389 yards and 3 touchdowns. It looks good in the stat sheet, but when you figure he threw 58 passes, and they only ran the ball 15 times outside of Matt Ryan after Deion Jackson went down. Now, Jackson was great, 10 catches for 75 yards, 12 carries for 42 and a touchdown. That was very productive, but he's fool's gold. We don't expect him to get much opportunity when Jonathan Taylor returns. So if you started Jackson these last couple weeks, good for you. I started in most places. There were a couple spots I left him on my bench that kind of regret. I started Curtis Samuel over him in one league. That was kind of a bummer. Probably cost me that win.
Yeah, I'm with you, though. 58 times feels like a lot. It was kind of encouraging. Alec Pierce continuing to be good. And just when I had given up on Paris Campbell, though, dude goes out there and gets 57 yards and a touchdown. Now I don't know what to believe.
And 11 targets. I mean, Campbell's been at the top of the wide receiver snaps most of the season. He'll play 80% of the snaps and get 1 or 2 targets. And it was just mind-numbing. I mean, hopefully he doesn't have to have Ryan throw the ball 60 times a game to get some production. But also, I think if Taylor's back in there, they're not going to run the ball, theoretically, they're not going to run the ball just 15 times. They're going to be over 20, pushing 25 attempts with Jonathan Taylor. And so that's going to impact the passing game. They had seven targets to tight ends, none of whom were Mo Alley Cox.
Now, just about the time you pick a Colts tight end is about the time they rotate to a new one. Well, on to another game. The surprisingly 5-1 Vikings pull off the 24-16 win in Miami against the Dolphins. Dennis, Kirk Cousins, just another workmanlike game. Only 175 yards passing, gets a couple touchdowns. It was noted this week he has yet to have a 300-yard passing game this season. But the Vikings 5-1. Is this kind of the new formula? A little less all Kirk-centric on the on the Minnesota offense?
I don't know if it's less Kirk-centric. I think it kind of is how the game is playing out for them. Their defense is a lot better than it has been in the last few years. And so the defense is making more stops, putting the offense in better position. I think if you're going to have Kirk Cousins winning you games, throwing for less than 200 yards, you're not going to expect Dalvin Cook to only have 13 carries. That's going to be, I don't think sub 200 yards and 13 carries for Dalvin Cook is going to be a long-term winning strategy for the Minnesota Vikings. You froze again, man. Either that or you blinked really, really long.
I don't know what's going on. On the flip side, the Skylar Thompson gets knocked out, and Teddy Bridgewater has to come in, throws for over 300 yards. But Miami losing their third straight game. Is it just a matter of needing Tua back, or what do they need to snap this losing streak?
I do think they need to get healthy on the offensive side of the ball. They've shown with Tua that they can win a shootout. He kind of clicks in that offense. I mean, Skylar Thompson, fabulous story. But man, he's not somebody you want, right? At least not this year, trying to will your team to victory against a pretty good defense. It was you never want to see somebody get hurt. It was good to see Teddy come back in. He played pretty well, 23 for 34, 329 and 2. The running game didn't give us the production we kind of expected out of Raheem Mostert, but if you're Miami, you want to get a win, and so you're going to have to try to set things up so that when Tua comes back, I think they expect him back this coming week. So
yeah, they said he is starting Sunday Night Football, a barn burner, the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers, where we'll get to their quarterback situation in a minute, but it will be interesting to see. Hey, at least Raheem Mostert actually gets touches. I'm starting to wonder why they paid Chase Edmonds all that money. Down in New Orleans, the Saints hosted the Bengals and fell 30-26. A pretty good game for the Bengals offense. Joe Burrow returning to New Orleans, where he played college ball, threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for another one. More importantly, managed to stay upright most of the game. They actually got some decent yards per carry on the ground the last 2 weeks, too. Is this offensive line starting to come together and figure it out?
I don't know. Figure it out's the word. I think they're starting to come together. Offensive lines have to get repetition, so they start to move as one. I do think it was, Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine combined for a grand total of 10 carries. So getting down a little bit, that was not a good spot to be in for the Bengals if you were rostering Joe Mixon, because they had to throw. So 10 targets for Chase, 10 for Higgins, 6 for Boyd. Mixon did have 5 and got in the end zone on a pass to kind of help salvage his fantasy day. But it was kind of all Jamar Chase at the end there when they needed to pull the game out.
Yeah, and he looked good. On the flip side, the Saints, no Jameis Winston, no Michael Thomas, no Chris Olave. Is it just a matter of missing too many pieces for the Saints?
I think so. I mean, Jarvis Landry was out as well. And I think for them, they need to get consistent play from the quarterback. You can't rely on Taysom Hill to have a bunch of, half a dozen wildcat plays that score you a couple touchdowns. Needs to be a little more conventional in my eyes. Boy, I sounded old there. But I don't know if Winston's the long-term answer. I don't know if they have a long-term answer on their roster at quarterback. I think Winston does some things well. Dalton does some things okay. And Taysom Hill runs the ball. But I do think, and Ian Book is the other guy down there. At least he was. I don't know that he's the answer either. So they're probably going to be in the market for a new quarterback.
Depends on what question you're asking, I guess. On to New York, where the other New York team also got a win. The Giants beat the Ravens 24-20 to move to 5-1. Dennis, for the Ravens, we've been preaching patience with J.K. Dobbins, trying to get him back and going along, but 7 carries for 15 yards, while we saw Kenyon Drake have 10 carries for 119, Jackson running for 77 on 7 totes. Is it time to start getting a little concerned if you roster J.K. Dobbins?
Maybe we got a little bit overzealous on how well and how fast he was going to come back from that pretty devastating knee injury. I think it does kind of give us a nice blueprint for what to expect for Javonte Williams. Dobbins tore a lot of stuff up in that knee. And while he's playing okay, I do think he got a little bit dinged up this week as well. But Kenyon Drake is healthy and he's running the ball well. So I think you do have to be nervous. Wouldn't surprise me, though, if they come out next week and J.K. Dobbins gets 17 carries.
Yeah, or Mike Davis. You never know with them. On the flip side, another workmanlike game for the Giants, but we did get to see Wan'Dale Robinson out there playing. He caught 3 balls for 37 yards and a touchdown. What did you think?
It was nice to see him finally get going. It looks like he can step into that Sterling Shepard role with a little bit more explosiveness than Shepard provided. I don't think we need to necessarily go overboard. I mean, it was 4 targets and 3 catches for only 37 yards. If he hadn't gotten into the end zone, would we be quite as excited about it? I mean, we know he can make some plays, but he's a little guy. He's not big. He's 5'8", 5'9", 175, 180 pounds. I don't know that you're going to put your wide receiver room on his shoulders and expect him to carry it across the line. But overall, the Giants are just playing really, really great team ball, and they're lifting each other up, and their coach is the real deal.
I don't know. I mean, I tend to agree with you, but it's somebody's that watching Kenny Galladay shares just wither on the vine. It was nice to find a Giants wide receiver that actually produced something.
Right.
We moved to Pittsburgh, where we got another of the most surprising outcomes on the day. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall 18-20 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to start with the Buccaneers. With all of the Steelers missing on defense, we thought it was going to be a get-right game for the Tampa Bay offense, and yet they score only 18 points. Tom Brady under 250 yards. Is it time to get concerned about this Tampa Bay offense?
Maybe taking half of the prep week off to go to Robert Kraft's wedding wasn't a great idea. Brady he's got a lot of shit going on off the field, to paraphrase Tom Brady. And that's never easy. And their weakness is the center of the offensive line. Those are 3 interior linemen, and that creates a lot of discomfort for Brady in the passing game. I think they're going to be fine. Do they have a Super Bowl run in them? I don't know about that. I think they're going to make the playoffs, but they need to get the line shaped up so Brady can feel comfortable. Getting Evans and keeping Evans healthy, getting Godwin back, him being healthy, that's definitely key to him having weapons. Fournette's playing great. His yards per carry wasn't a big number this week, but he's catching the ball and he's grinding out the yardage and getting the tough yards.
Yeah, it is weird, though. Buccaneers, for all the weapons that they have, 5 out of their 6 games, they've been under 21 points. That was the case definitely on Sunday. On the flip side, Kenny Pickett started it, but got knocked out with a concussion, becoming a trend for quarterbacks all across the NFL this year. Mitch Trubisky comes off the bench and does something that he didn't do in any of his games that he started. He slung the ball 9-12, 144 yards and a touchdown, getting the win. What do you, supposing Pickett gets cleared, quarterback controversy, you think they go right back to the rookie?
It's interesting because Jerry Dulac had an article come out in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette today that during halftime of that game when Mitch got benched, that Deontay Johnson was throwing a wide receiver diva hissy fit about needing the ball thrown to him more, and not just off to the side, like at Trubisky, and that Trubisky was giving it back to him, holding his ground. Johnson had the interception bounce off his hands, missed another easy one, and so, but for whatever reason, Tomlin deemed it that they needed a spark from the rookie, and I don't know, maybe Mitch got the shaft a little bit there. And, winning is a great deodorant. And there's some talk that maybe over the years, things weren't always as well, as fine-tuned as it was perceived in the Mike Tomlin era. They're 2-4 now, and some of these people are starting to get a little ouchy about things, and it's getting public with social media now. It doesn't take long for stuff to get public. So, it's coming out that this argument happened. We'll see. I think Mitch handled it well, but from everything we can see, the rookie went in, and when it was his time to play again, he was ready.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mentioned the Dolphins and the Steelers are the Sunday night football game, so we'll get to see the Steelers back in prime time. On to Los Angeles, where the Panthers continue to be a dumpster fire. New coach, same result. They lose 24-10 to the Rams. The bigger story might be what happened on the sideline, which is interim coach Steve Wilks sending Robbie Anderson to the bench, to the locker room during the middle of the game. Anderson was then moved to the Cardinals this morning. Dennis, what does this mean for the Panthers and for Robbie Anderson?
Well, Robbie Anderson fucked around, found out. That's for damn sure. He's like
found out he's now option number 6 for a low volume passing team.
Steve Wilks was like, "You think it sucks here? I'm going to send you to Arizona. I know what it's like there." And he got him out of town. Did you hear what the compensation was for the trade yet?
It was like a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
It was literally a GTFO trade.
Right. I said last week that I felt bad for Wilks taking over as the interim because it pretty much was going to rule out him getting a shot to be the head coach again. And I'd like to see some of these guys that feel that they have to take shitty situations because it'll be their only opportunity to be a head coach, get more chances or get another chance quicker. And maybe Wilks falls into that category. There's a lot of stuff going on in Carolina. It's a mess. And having Baker Mayfield there, I don't think helps any of that. And Matt Rule didn't help any of it. I think that Wilks is looking around and he's saying, look, if I want to get another legitimate shot, I'm going to do this my way and F everybody else. And you don't want to be here. You want to be an ass on the sideline. Good. You go and you get out of here. I'm going to get some capital for you. We're going to move on. The guys in this locker room, we're going to start to pull it together and we're going to start to fight. I think they're probably going to have more people get moved than Robbie Anderson. But hey, F around and find out.
Anything that brings us closer to me seeing Terrace Marshall actually get a target, I'm all for. On the flip side, the Rams have their own fuck around and find out situation with Cam Akers that maybe we'll get some clarity on this week. It wasn't always pretty. They were actually at one point losing to the Panthers after another pick 6 from Matthew Stafford, but the Rams do manage to get 24 points on the board and win by 14, covering the 10.5-point home spread. 8 different players got carries in this game, including Stafford and Darrell Henderson, which was fascinating. Was this a get-right game for the Rams or a case of them catching the right opponent at the right time?
Let's not get it twisted. It was the Panthers. I mean, the Rams still have a exceptional defense. Those guys are going to play. The Rams have a good team. I'm not sure why Ronnie Rivers and Tutu Atwell are getting carries, even with Cam Akers.
I'll take the Ben Skoranek one. I actually had to play him in a league where I was way, in the hole with injuries and bye weeks and stuff. So seeing that 17-yard rushing touchdown was a salve to my soul.
It was good to see Allen Robinson finally come around. Hopefully this is a harbinger of things to come and not a oasis in the desert of whatever. Oasis in the desert. Don't you hate it when you fall on your face halfway through?
I was excited. A-Rob did have a better game, but then I saw Skoranek got the rushing touchdown and also had 5 receptions, so I was trying not to get too excited. I still don't know if we learned much about the Rams from this game.
No, they spread the ball around now outside of Cooper Kupp. Kupp still, he had 8 receptions. I think if it's a tight game, Kupp's going to have 15, or he had 8 targets. If it's a tight game, Cup's going to have 15 targets because that's where the trust is. The rest of it, it just needs to keep building. Skoranek drops a lot of passes. I don't see him surpassing Allen Robinson, but he's going to be the number 3 until he gets pushed away.
Yeah, maybe at some point Jefferson will actually make an appearance.
Supposed to be coming up next week, I saw today. I think he's getting activated next week.
On to 2 other NFC West teams. The Arizona Cardinals traveled to Seattle and left with a 19-9 loss. I actually called that was my upset of the week. So thank you, Geno Smith. Not a great game from you, but you did what I needed to do. On the flip side, though,
the Arizona Cardinals, was it really an upset?
The Cardinals were favored, which I thought was kind of a joke since they were both 2 and 3 teams. I'm going by the stupid favoring system that they have. Kyler Murray, throws for a couple hundred, runs for 100 yards. His team's 2 and 4. We mentioned went and got Robbie Anderson. They have DeAndre Hopkins coming back off of suspension. What more does Kyler need to do for this team?
I don't know. I think we've seen everything he can do, and in my eyes, it's not winning football. I've never been a Kyler Murray fan. I think if street ball is your thing, then Kyler Murray is your guy. He's going to run around, and then he's going to run around some more, and he's going to chuck it deep. Getting DeAndre Hopkins back, Robbie Anderson, latest report I saw, not Robbie Anderson, Marquise Brown, the latest report that I saw was it's looking like it wasn't quite as bad as feared, and it might only be about a 6-week injury. I think Anderson steps in and takes some of that deep stuff that Marquise Brown was running. Whether or not him and Murray can develop chemistry and timing quick enough for that to actually matter, I don't know. But Zach Ertz is having a really good season. And, I spent last night as the game was winding down going through all my lineups and sticking DeAndre Hopkins in my week 7 lineups. Watch him be inactive next week. I'm going to be so pissed.
Yeah, well, watch it be like a 13-target AJ Green game for all we know. On the flip side, for Seattle, they had been riding the hot hand of Geno Smith, but he wasn't that hot this week. You had mentioned you thought tight ends could have a chance to succeed against Arizona. We saw Noah Fant with perhaps his best game of the season for them, catches 6 for 45. Is it a product of the opponent, or is he starting to develop a role here in Seattle?
Tight ends had 10 of 31 targets. And so I think some of it was definitely game plan. And it's the situation we've seen with them and their tight ends over the course of the first 6 weeks is it could be any one of them getting 4 or 5 targets. And so I'm a little bit nervous with Fant and the 7 targets. I don't think I'm rushing out to add him as a savior for my tight end position, but we know he's a pretty good tight end. He's a low end tight end 2 at this point because you just don't know what the volume is going to be, and that on any given week it could be a different tight end.
Yeah, I wanted to feel hopeful about Fant, but I guess we will see.
I mean, the Seattle tight end situation is like a lot of my fantasy teams. I don't have one of the elite ones, so I grabbed like 3 mediocre ones, and I'm just trying to play the right one each week.
Well, I feel like the entire tight end position is a bunch of mediocre options. I was looking today, Tyler Conklin seemed like the 0 tight end truther hero for 3 weeks, and he's only seen 8 targets over the last 3 games total since Wilson came back. 3 in the last 2 games, only caught 1, which I guess is 3 more targets than Elijah Moore. But it's like, tight end just seems like it's such a toss-up position. On to what was actually probably the best game of the day, and it turned out the way I was hoping for, so that made it better for me, and that's the Buffalo Bills heading into Kansas City and winning 24-20. Dennis, are the Bills the best team in the NFL?
Man, it's close between them and Philly. It really is. I feel like the Bills, are a little bit better on defense and have a little bit better running game. Their running game is kind of on par. With Philadelphia, the style is different in what they do in the running game. We've seen with basically, if you roster Devin Singletary, you're going to need to figure out what the game script is going to be. Because if it's close, then Devin Singletary is getting high leverage touches, 17 for 85 yesterday. The Bills were so confident they were going to be using Devin Singletary, they deactivated Zach Moss.
I think Moss has actually lost his spot to Cook because Cook has been looking better and getting more, which it's fascinating. Just when you think Zach Moss is like building some momentum, it turns out he's just the guy that they're happy to have around as long as they can't find anyone better.
Yeah, it's a great job if you can get it, I guess.
The Bills were my pick to not only go, but to win the Super Bowl preseason. So I thought they were going to be the best team, and nothing I've seen has really put me off. It was a little bit of a fluky loss, in my opinion, the one to Miami, the kind of thing that happens when you're playing division rivals. They could easily be 6-0 as well. But Philly, we'll get to them in a minute. They're definitely looking good. On the flip side, I told you on Friday, Dennis, I didn't think there was a single receiver I could trust for the Chiefs, and Juju Smith-Schuster heard me and was very angry that I had lost faith. Goes out there, has 2 40-plus yard plays, catches a touchdown, 5 for 113. Is this, just the kind of thing that can happen when you have Patrick Mahomes, or is this a sign of things to come?
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while.
They only find the nuts when I say they're on this sit list for the week, though.
No, Marquez Valdez-Scantling put up a goose egg.
Did you watch that game, though?
I watched some of it.
I felt like crying for you because he caught a touchdown and it got nullified by a freaking hold or illegal formation.
It's, Juju he's a wide receiver, low end 3, high end 4, with some upside. I just don't. I'm not buying it. He looks slow. I think Travis Kelce looks faster than him, honestly. If I'm going to play a Kansas City wide receiver and it's going to be Juju, I'm going to need to see a 3 more consistent weeks out of him with this kind of production before I move in that direction.
That's the thing that kills me. I don't think you're ever going to feel confident starting a receiver outside of Kelce because, you could get this 5 for 113 and a touchdown from Juju, but you could easily get the 2 for 9 yards, which I think is what he had 2 weeks ago. It's just I think they did it to spite me. At least Kansas City lost. That's all I care about. The Sunday night football game was one we were looking forward to. The Cowboys head into Philadelphia and fall 26-17. It was an odd game. The Eagles building a 20-0 lead, the Cowboys cutting it to a 3-point game and then sort of fading away. Dennis, going in, a lot had been made of Cooper Rush being undefeated and maybe being the tonic the Dallas Cowboys needed. Certainly did not look that way last night. Does this kind of put an end to the Cooper Rush should be starting over Dak Prescott argument?
No, there was never an argument. Anybody making that argument was just trying to get clicks. I mean, the story is that Cooper Rush is just old Bailey Zappi. That's all Cooper Rush is. He's a guy, he's going to be around. He's going to not lose you games, but he's not going to carry the team. Hopefully he doesn't make mistakes. He's played well. If you lose your quarterback for 5-6 games, this is what every team hopes for. But it could have just as easily been a Skylar Thompson situation where he was running around like crazy, or a PJ Walker situation, or a Kendall Hinton situation. I mean, do we remember Ben DiNucci? I mean, like, holy cow, that was so. I mean, let's not get crazy here. Cooper Rush he's going to be a career backup. Like, he's not going to go next year and get offered a chance to compete for a job. I like that he's playing well, but he's not going to – nobody's going to say, hey, sign this free agent contract. We're going to let you compete for a job.
I don't know. It depends on if the Washington front office stays the same. Did you think, though, in week 6 of the NFL season, we'd be legitimately talking about starting quarterbacks or quarterbacks playing meaningful snaps, including Jacob Eason, PJ Walker, Bailey Zappi, Cooper Rush?
I mean, it's
Skylar Thompson.
It's football. I mean,
we had 3 third-string quarterbacks start games this week.
Yeah. I started 2 of them in the same game.
That's right. What a day. On the flip side, the Eagles, still the league's only undefeated team, 6-0. They are off next week on a bye, so they will remain the league's only undefeated team through 7 weeks. Dennis, how dangerous is this Eagles team?
It's very dangerous. I mean, they're running the ball really, really well. And by the way, that team that I started PJ Walker and Skylar Thompson on, I am currently up 173 to 115.
So what you're saying is you got a chance.
I do. They run the ball really, really, really well. And, speaking of waking up feeling dangerous, Jalen Hurts is playing out of his mind. He's making all the right moves. He's throwing it well when he needs to throw it well. It wasn't a crazy. He had a 60% completion rate and only 155 yards, but he threw 2 touchdowns. And Miles Sanders just chewed up the Dallas defense, 18 carries for 71 yards. Hurts had 9 for 27. That's fine. Gainwell 5 for 25. Boston Scott 6 for 16. It wasn't like it was. The offense didn't like blow the doors off the Cowboys. The defense kept the Cowboys in check.
Yeah, and what's fascinating from a fantasy standpoint too is I think they, aside from Hurts, they have kind of 4 fantasy relevant options. The 2 receivers in Smith and Brown, Goddard at tight end, and Miles Sanders. And it seems like now we're seeing after a few weeks they can only really keep 3 of them with good games any one particular week. So Goddard was the odd man out last night, but it was all that. AJ Brown looked good. I thought Devonta Smith looked good. Sanders looked good. But if you rolled Goddard, you were probably a little sad. Next week it'll be somebody else's bingo card will come up. But I'm with you. Their defense looks good. I thought the Eagles had a chance to be a surprising team. They're just not a surprise anymore. They're just outright good. But in an NFC that is quite a toss-up right now, it's interesting. The Eagles and the Vikings are almost the only 2 teams that are distancing themselves from the crowd. So be fascinating to see. Well,
season left.
I know, still a lot of season left. Monday Night Football is coming up. The Broncos activated Justin Simmons, Greg Dulcich, and Michael Ojemudia off of the IR for tonight. So Justin Simmons going to be making his return just to get my hopes up before they can get dashed on the first play. I believe Keenan Allen has now officially been ruled out. Yes.
And
so
Alberto is inactive.
Alberto, I have to be honest, may not be employed for a whole lot longer. I don't understand. I don't know if something happened weird in the off season or if he's just not developing rapport. But with Dulcich coming back, it's real bad. Alberto was one of my favorite stashes this offseason, and there's legitimate Broncos beat reporters that are suspecting he's going to get cut. And I don't really know what to make. Eric Saubert has looked like a better tight end, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't. And with Dulcich coming back, I guess we will see what's happening. I'm just hoping the offense looks a little bit better than the peaked offense that we've seen in the last few weeks. I'm still picking you, Denver, but I guess it just means I'm prepared to get hurt again.
Yeah, Chargers for me.
Well, that'll do it for today. Matt and I will be back on Wednesday looking at another scintillating Thursday night game. The Arizona Cardinals, with their brand new Robbie Anderson at wide receiver, will take on the New Orleans Saints, and we'll find out if any Saints are actually going to be active for that game. So Matt and I will touch on that. And then next Friday, we will be previewing all of the Week 7 action. It's hard to believe we are already at Week 7. But until then, hope you have a good night. Dennis, what should the people do?
Give us a follow at the at Roundtable FF on Twitter. Rate us, review us, go download the podcast, listen, don't listen, whatever.
You know what? Does